We've got a pre-combined Cowboys mock draft for you on today's show, and if you want one right after this year's NFL Combine, show it by liking today's video, please, and thank you. Let's get into the picks here. I did the PFF sim. Some of them are weird. Don't blame me. I am limited by what the tools I have available. Bernardo Mendoza, no surprise, goes number 1. If you do a mock draft, he's not number 1, just restart it. Ruben Bain, Arvell Reese, David Bailey all off the board, 3 in a row edge rushers there, then 3 straight offensive players. My lemon goes number 5, Jeremiah Love to the Browns, which I don't really get it, but whatever. He's going to go somewhere in the top 10 in theory. Carnell Tate to the Commanders, Caleb DS to the Saints. Maybe we just pretend to flip Downs and Love or something, or Tate and Love or whatever. Sonny Styles goes number 9 to the Chiefs, taking out one of the Cowboys' top potential draft picks. Francis Mwangoa goes number 10 to the Bengals, and Jermad McCoy off the board to the Miami Dolphins out of Tennessee. For me, that leaves one of the top available defensive players off the board. I'm gonna take him. Maybe this means Don Bland has to play more nickel, but I would happily draft Monsa Delane out of LSU in round 1 at pick number 12. It would be a fantastic pick as far as I'm concerned. I don't have any real concerns, doubts, issues with his game. I think adding him just sets me up for success. I think he's probably more of an outside corner. I could try him in the nickel as well. I don't love his run support, so maybe Bland ends up going in there. But what is your number 1 job as a corner? To cover. He didn't get beat in coverage like he was on fire all year long, by the way, playing through a core muscle injury for a good portion of the season, and it didn't bother him. He cooked the entire season. We'll see what Jamal McCoy looks like at the NFL Combine. That'll, I think, be a big deal for figuring out exactly where his stock goes. But I think Delane is the top corner in this year's NFL Draft. Who do you want to take in round 1? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Drop that player name for me. Focus on pick 12 here. Drop it for me in the comments of today's show. There weren't really that many other round 1 options that I like that much. Jordan Tyson was maybe the top pure player on the board, but you got receiver at 12. No. Cassius Howell and Kendrick Falk, edge on the outside for Howe, maybe a 4i5 tech for Falk. I don't love those picks at 12, especially Falk. Fano out of Utah. If you want to play him at right tackle, okay, but also you need defensive help. Avon Terrell might be more in play at 20 than anything else. Alright, moving on here with the other picks in round 1. Cassius Howe to the Rams, which they don't need an edge, but whatever. Peter Woods to the Ravens. I honestly don't get the Bucs spending another first-round pick on a wide receiver, but whatever. Jordan Dyson goes 16. Jets got to be over the moon to take the better expert. Spencer Fondo goes to Lions. Home run pick there. Avon Terrell off the board to the Vikings. Kendrick Falk, which I don't want to take him at 20, so it's a win for me. Off the board to the Panthers. Some notable players to our left then. Ahake Metter, TJ Parker, 2 of the better edges. Caden Proctor I think becomes the top offensive tackle remaining, CJ Allen who I like out of Georgia, and Dylan Nunn plus Emmanuel McNeil Warren both safeties there at Toledo and Oregon respectively. But I'm gonna trade down. I want more picks. I want more shots at top 75, top 100 talent. Bills agreed to this trade. It is via the PFF sim. It's not that different actually than I think the NFL one that they did. Cowboys first. They get 26 back. 91 overall 3rd rounder and 126 a 4th rounder. Bills took Caden McDonald in the mock draft sim out of Ohio State, the defensive tackle. Players go off the board here. Caden Proctor out of Bama to Pittsburgh, which a little weird but okay. Caleb Banks Slay Hunter couple defensive tackles all in a row. Keenan Suddy to the Browns. Again, I don't understand what this Browns mock draft is. They spent picks in the 1st round. They got good play out of Quinn Sean Judkins and Harold Fannin last year. Super weird mock draft. We'll pretend he went somewhere else. They go on to the Bears, which isn't their biggest name. But hey, guys are getting older there. I'm going to trade down again though because none of the defensive guys I wanted went off the board, and what I'm doing here is taking 26 that 3rd rounder I got. I'll throw in my 7th rounder as well. Move down 3 spots in round 1. Jump up 30 spots from the 3rd round to the 2nd round. So essentially, big picture here, I've taken pick 20 and a 7th and turned it into pick 29, a 2nd and a 4th. It's wheeling and dealing that I think benefits me to add some more talent. How many draft trades do you think the Dallas Cowboys will end up making? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Now there were some defensive players the board. The Rams jumped up and took Kasek Concepcion, Ake Mesidor off the board, C.J. Allen off the board 27-28. There were 3 guys in particular I had my eye on there when I made the move down. I got one of them. That's Dylan Lemon, the safety out of Oregon, who I am excited about. I'm curious how he tests. I think it should be very strong testing who are going to come back. Like, you could take the freak athlete safety at 20 and be okay with it. He's done some deep safety. He's done some strong safety. He's done some nickel too, by the way. I think could do more of it in the NFL. I actually really dug NFL Network's player comp Javon Holland, who did safety and nickel stuff as well. Over the course of his career, 300 tackles and 8 interceptions. I don't know. Maybe I could find the research too much time on it. I don't know how many players in college have 300 tackles and 8 interceptions over the course of their career. That's got to be a very select few number there. He's not like a big, powerful hitting safety, but he'll be 6 feet 207 inches. I think plug and play starter. I think fits very well if you're going to do a bunch of split safety stuff. I think he fits very well for the Dallas Cowboys, plus maybe some added bonuses with the nickel spot. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Pick makes every dunk dime board that much more exciting. Don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks, that is Prize Picks. They have early payouts. Your player gets off to a hot start, you have option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes or the season finishes. Season-long baseball Prize Picks lineups now available. This one from my guy Jack. Brian Bioa less than era, Garrett Crochet more than strikeouts, Roman Anthony more than homers, and then Nick Kurtz more than 3 multi-homer games. You can do the flex play on that, by the way, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. If you haven't already, go to prizepicks.com, download the Prize Picks app today, and use code CLS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com. You get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So I have a second rounder now. A couple notable players who went off the board that I'm like, oh, that would have been nice. Mello Hyde out of Texas Tech, Jake Gold out of Cincinnati to the Eagles and Chargers respectively, couple edges Derek Moore, Joshua Josephs, and then Max Ahanakor to Arizona out of Houston. I got a linebacker who I'm super intrigued by, and that is Anthony Hill out of Texas. Josiah Trotter went a little bit earlier and helped push Hill down in this sim. There's a lot of upside and maybe some downside. I will probably based on some of the buzz and like where Diony has him at and everything. I would not be surprised if I end up being higher on Anthony Hill than like the NFL as a. I think he's a really good size, really good athletic ability, plenty of impact plays, had a bunch of sacks as well. I am curious what the instincts are like. I think there are times that they are lacking a little bit more than what you would prefer. His production also dipped this year. I think in large part be because of injuries, couple missed tackles as well. He was often brought as like a run blitzer, so I think schematic fit, which I mean I watch the Eagles and Vic Fangio bring guys like Kobe Dean all the time on blitzes. So in the second round, if I get a day 2 pick, Anthony Hill is very much on my list. Round 4 pick number 112. We won't do the recent picks because you know why bother there. I'm going to get an edge, that's Malachi Lawrence, the edge rusher out of Central Florida, 40 pressures this past year. I think fits fairly well as in what the Cowboys will probably be doing up front this upcoming season. Did crack Deany's top 100 by the way. I don't love him as a run defender necessarily. The pressure rate was pretty darn solid over the course of the season. I think we have not yet seen the best out of him, even though I know he was a redshirt sophomore or redshirt senior, out of at Central Florida. Probably needs a year to fully develop and unlock. But also we're in the 4th round, so you're just not going to get the same caliber of players that you would be able to get earlier, and that's certainly okay. Round 4 I'm going to double dip at linebacker. This pick, by the way, via the Buffalo Bills. Sean Elliott, the linebacker out of Arizona State. 98 tackles this past season. Oh, by the way, a bunch of sacks and TFLs as well. Kind of like Anthony Hill, a little bit up and down in coverage. I think Elliott is just a bit more experienced there. As opposed to like Hill, I think is maybe some instinctual issues there. Heard good things about his character as well, good against the run, which I certainly think matters for this team, matters for this organization. They're going to double dip somewhere on defense. Edge linebacker maybe stand out as the two most likely options. We will be in Indy for this week's NFL Combine, although it doesn't sound like Shoddy will do a press conference there necessarily. We will have you covered though with all the buzz and news and updates and meetings. So hit that sub button if you haven't already. youtube.com/CowboysTV. Round 5 pick 150. Drew Shelton, the left tackle from Penn State. I think you could try to push him over to the right side, although he's a good athlete, former basketball player, didn't have the breakout season I know so many were hoping for necessarily. Can you add some strength to his game? Can you bulk him up a little bit more and make him into a more reliable player? Now I would have liked to take a right tackle here. I weren't in love with the options. Shelton I thought was a decent developmental pick with extra picks. Now I would be on board if I found the Cowboys drafting an offensive tackle in some capacity, or offensive line I should say, pretty much every year. Alright, round 5 pick number 177. My comp pick here, Bishop Fitzgerald out of USC. I'm going to double dip again in the secondary. I am very curious to see how Fitzgerald ends up being viewed. The production isn't necessarily eye-poppy, but there has started to be some of the, I don't know if I want to call it like, what's the right phrase here, hipster evaluations of like, oh, Bishop Fitzgerald is actually a better than Kamari Ramsey. The one thing he has going in his favor more than anything else, fantastic ball skills. He's not going to be the biggest player necessarily, but he had 5 interceptions this year, 10 over the course of his career, I believe, had a pick 6 in there as well. Maybe ends up being a really hooker replacement in a year. My final pick in round 6, Josh Cameron, the wide receiver out of Baylor, who has the size the Cowboys always seem to like in a wide receiver. We've seen that many a time over the past couple years. Also doubles, by the way, as someone with some return value. He did do some returns for Baylor, and was moderately successful on top of that. I don't know how much he's going to be a return man in the NFL, but he's actually kind of built more like the big running back type as opposed to a receiver. And if you can make him into your receiver 5, and you maybe for now and for Turpin in a season, I think that actually is something to consider in the back end of day 3. So grade this Cowboys mock draft A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. This is my final Cowboys mock draft before the NFL Combine. Monsieur Delane, round 1 pick 12. I traded down twice in round 1 to get an extra 4th and a 2nd. Dylan the Mons safety out of Oregon with that first round pick. Anthony Hill Jr. the linebacker from Texas. Malachi Lawrence the edge out of Central Florida. Deshaun Elliott the linebacker from Arizona State. My first offensive player, Drew Shelton the OT out of Penn State. Bishop Fitzgerald may be able to cook a replacement down the line. Safety from USC. And Josh Cameron receiver with some return value out of Baylor.